Before we dive into this heart-wrenching story of a father's desperate search for his missing son, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. This tale will take you through the darkest moments of loss and the brightest hopes of redemption. Enjoy the story. The summer evening felt perfect for camping. Marcus Thompson smiled as he watched 7-year-old Tyler drag his superhero sleeping bag across the backyard, his blonde hair catching the golden sunset light. "Dad, can we make s'mores later?" Tyler asked, his bright blue eyes sparkling with excitement. "Of course, buddy. But first, let's get your tent set up properly," Marcus replied, ruffling his son's hair. Two of Tyler's friends, Jake and Tommy, had arrived with their own camping gear, turning the backyard into an adventure zone. Sarah Thompson watched from the kitchen window, shaking her head with a gentle smile. "You spoil him, Marcus," she called out, but her voice held warmth. "Only the best for our little superhero," Marcus called back, helping Tyler zip up the tent. As darkness fell, the boys roasted marshmallows over a small camping stove, their laughter echoing through the quiet suburban neighborhood. Gerald Hendricks, their neighbor, waved from his porch. "Having fun over there," Gerald shouted. "Thanks, Mr. Hendricks," Tyler waved back enthusiastically. By 10 o'clock, the boys were tucked into their sleeping bags, whispering and giggling in the tent. Marcus kissed Tyler's forehead through the mesh window. "Sweet dreams, son. I'll be right inside if you need anything." "I love you, Dad," Tyler whispered sleepily. Those would be the last words Marcus would hear from his son. At 3:47 a.m., piercing screams shattered the peaceful night. Marcus bolted upright, his heart hammering as he recognized Jake's terrified voice. "Mr. Thompson, Tyler's gone." Marcus ran barefoot across the dewy grass, Sarah close behind. Inside the tent, Jake and Tommy huddled together, sobbing. Tyler's sleeping bag lay empty, still warm but abandoned. "Where is he? Tyler?" Marcus shouted into the darkness, his voice cracking with panic. No response, no trace, no signs of struggle, just an empty sleeping bag and a father's world crumbling into pieces. The police arrived within minutes, their flashlights cutting through the night like desperate prayers. Detective Morrison examined the tent methodically while Marcus paced frantically. "Sir, is there any reason Tyler might have left on his own?" the detective asked gently. "No," Marcus exploded. "Tyler wouldn't just leave. Someone took him." But even as he said the words, doubt crept in. Had Tyler sleepwalked? Had he gotten scared and wandered off? Sarah gripped Marcus's arm, tears streaming down her face. "Find him, please. Find our baby." As dawn broke over their shattered world, Marcus stood in his backyard, staring at the empty tent. Somewhere out there, his 7-year-old son was alone, possibly terrified, possibly. He couldn't finish the thought. "Tyler!" He screamed one more time into the morning air, his voice echoing off the houses where families still slept peacefully, unaware that nightmares could come true in quiet suburban neighborhoods. The silence that answered back was deafening. 18 months. 18 months of empty cereal bowls set out by habit. 18 months of jumping at every phone call, praying for news. 18 months of Tyler's bedroom remaining exactly as he left it. Superhero posters on the walls, toys scattered across the floor, waiting for small hands that never came home. Marcus stood in the kitchen, mechanically making coffee for one instead of two. Sarah had moved out 6 months ago, unable to bear the weight of their shared grief and her own crushing guilt about that fatal camping decision. "You encouraged it, Marcus," she had said through tears the night she packed her bags. "You wanted to be the fun dad, and now..." The accusation hung between them like poison. Even now, alone in their house, Marcus could hear her words echoing off the walls. The kitchen table was covered with missing person flyers, Tyler's smiling face staring back at him from hundreds of copies. Marcus had plastered them across 3 counties, driven thousands of miles chasing false leads, spent their savings on private investigators who found nothing. Detective Morrison still called occasionally, his voice growing more distant with each conversation. "We haven't given up, Mr. Thompson, but after this much time..." Marcus never let him finish those sentences. The doorbell rang, startling him from his thoughts. Through the peephole, he saw Gerald Hendricks holding a casserole dish, his kind eyes filled with familiar sympathy. "Thought you might need a home-cooked meal," Gerald said as Marcus opened the door. "You're getting too thin, neighbor." "Thanks, Gerald. You don't have to keep doing this." "Nonsense. We look out for each other around here." Gerald stepped inside, glancing at the flyers covering every surface. "Still putting these up? Every day. Someone, somewhere, has seen him." Gerald nodded thoughtfully. "I admire your faith, Marcus. Not everyone could stay so strong." After Gerald left, Marcus walked to Tyler's room and sat on the small bed. He picked up his son's favorite stuffed dinosaur, holding it close and breathing in the faint scent that remained bubblegum shampoo and childhood innocence. "Where are you, buddy?" he whispered. "Daddy's still looking. Daddy will never stop looking." Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the backyard where that cursed tent had stood. Marcus had burned it the day after Tyler disappeared, watching the flames consume the last place his son had been safe. The phone rang. Marcus lunged for it, hope flaring in his chest despite 18 months of disappointment. "Hello, is this Marcus Thompson? I think I saw your boy at a McDonald's in Denver." He was with a woman, but something seemed off. Marcus grabbed a pen, his hands shaking as he wrote down every detail. Denver was 400 miles away, but he'd driven further on weaker leads. As he hung up, preparing for another heartbreaking journey into false hope, Marcus caught sight of his reflection in Tyler's bedroom mirror. The man staring back was a stranger, hollow-eyed, desperate, aged years and months. But he was still a father, and fathers never give up. The search would continue tomorrow. The Denver lead had been another dead end. Marcus returned home after 3 days of searching, his heart heavier than before. The woman at McDonald's had been a single mother with her own child, a boy who looked nothing like Tyler up close. 2 weeks later, Marcus found himself going through the motions of normal life. The laundry basket overflowed with clothes that had piled up during his Denver trip. Sarah used to handle these things, but now domestic tasks fell to him alone. He carried the basket outside, grateful for the mundane distraction. The morning air was crisp, autumn painting the neighborhood in shades of gold and red. As he began hanging shirts on the clothesline, Marcus's routine was shattered by something that made his blood turn to ice. There, fluttering in the gentle breeze next door, hung a child's shirt on Gerald's clothesline. Not just any shirt, Tyler's Superman shirt. The bright blue fabric with the iconic red and yellow logo was unmistakable, but it was the small, brown stain near the bottom hem that made Marcus's knees buckle. Chocolate ice cream from Tyler's 7th birthday party, a stain that had never completely washed out despite Sarah's best efforts. Marcus gripped the fence between their yards, his vision blurring. The shirt danced in the wind like a ghost, taunting him with impossible questions. How could Gerald have Tyler's shirt? His mind raced frantically. Had Tyler somehow made it to Gerald's house that night? Had Gerald found him wandering and failed to call the police? Or worse, had Gerald been involved in Tyler's disappearance all along? The supportive neighbor who had brought casseroles and offered comfort. The man who had watched Marcus suffer for 18 months, never once mentioning that he possessed his missing son's clothing. Marcus's hands trembled as he watched the shirt sway hypnotically. Every instinct screamed at him to leap the fence, tear the shirt down, and demand answers. But something held him back, a survival instinct that whispered he needed to be careful, strategic. If Gerald was innocent, there might be an explanation. If Gerald was guilty, confronting him now might destroy any chance of finding Tyler. The kitchen window of Gerald's house reflected the morning sun, making it impossible to see inside. Was Gerald watching him right now? Had he hung the shirt deliberately, knowing Marcus would see it? A car door slammed somewhere down the street, making Marcus jump. He forced himself to continue hanging laundry with shaking hands, trying to appear normal while his world tilted on its axis. The Superman shirt continued its ghostly dance, each flutter a silent scream that echoed through Marcus's shattered heart. 20 minutes later, As he carried the empty basket inside, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He wouldn't rush in blindly. He would watch, plan, and gather evidence. Because if Gerald Hendricks knew something about Tyler's disappearance, Marcus would find out, even if it destroyed him in the process. The shirt was still there when he checked again an hour later, mocking him through his kitchen window. Marcus waited until evening, when Gerald's porch light flickered on. His neighbor sat in his usual spot, reading a newspaper and sipping coffee as if nothing had changed. "Evening, Gerald," Marcus called over the fence, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Oh, hello, Marcus. How was your trip to Denver?" The casual question hit Marcus like a punch. Gerald knew about Denver. Marcus had never mentioned the trip to him. Disappointing as usual, Marcus forced a neighbor-friendly smile. "Hey, I noticed you had some laundry out today. That blue shirt looked familiar." Gerald's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips, just for a split second, but Marcus caught it. "Oh, that old thing? Picked it up at a thrift store downtown. Goodwill, I think. Or maybe it was the Salvation Army." Gerald's laugh sounded hollow. "You know how these Superman shirts all look the same, right?" "Of course." Marcus nodded, filing away every detail of Gerald's response. "Which thrift store exactly? I donate there sometimes. Can't remember, honestly. I hit so many of them looking for bargains. Retirement budget, you know?" Gerald stood abruptly. "Well, I should head inside. Getting chilly out here." Marcus watched Gerald retreat into his house, noting how quickly the conversation had ended. Back in his own kitchen, he pulled out a notebook and began writing down everything he could remember about Gerald Hendricks. The man had moved in just 2 weeks before Tyler's disappearance. Marcus remembered because Gerald had introduced himself while they were setting up the camping equipment. A retired teacher from Ohio, he'd said. Lived alone, kept to himself mostly, except for the occasional casserole delivery. Marcus fired up his laptop and began searching. Gerald's story about thrift stores was easily verifiable. There were 6 within a 15-mile radius. If Gerald shopped at all of them regularly, clerks might remember him. But something else nagged at Marcus. He pulled up the old missing person reports, scanning through timeline details he'd memorized. Gerald had moved in on July 15th. Tyler disappeared on July 30th. 2 weeks. Not enough time to establish normal neighborhood routines, but enough time to observe a family's patterns. To learn that Marcus worked late on Fridays. To notice Tyler's habit of playing outside after dinner. To see the camping gear stored in their garage. Marcus's hands trembled as he typed, "Gerald Hendricks, Ohio teacher," into the search engine. The results were sparse, a few school district mentions, but nothing substantial. He tried variations, Gary Hendricks, Jerry Hendricks, even G. Hendricks. Still nothing concrete. At midnight, Marcus closed the laptop, his mind racing. Tomorrow, he would visit every thrift store in the area. He would ask about Gerald, show Tyler's photo, and see if anyone remembered selling or donating a Superman shirt. But deep in his gut, Marcus already knew what he would find. No clerk would remember Gerald buying that specific shirt, because Gerald hadn't bought it anywhere. He had taken it from Tyler. As Marcus finally tried to sleep, one thought kept echoing through his mind. If Gerald had Tyler's shirt, what else did he have? And more terrifyingly, where was Tyler now? Outside his window, Gerald's house sat dark and silent, keeping its secrets locked away in the shadows. The thrift store visits confirmed Marcus's suspicions. 5 stores, 8 clerks, dozens of Superman shirts in various sizes. But not one employee remembered selling that specific shirt to Gerald Hendricks. Several clerks recognized Tyler's photo, their faces softening with sympathy, but none had seen Gerald before. Marcus's investigation evolved from casual inquiries to full surveillance. He bought binoculars, a telephoto lens for his camera, and a notebook dedicated solely to tracking Gerald's movements. Gerald left his house every Tuesday and Friday at 9:15 a.m., driving a silver Honda Civic. Marcus followed at a distance, documenting routes, stops, and timing. Most trips led to mundane destinations, grocery stores, the library, doctor appointments. But the Friday trips were different. Every Friday, Gerald drove 43 miles to a rural area outside Millbrook County. Marcus watched through binoculars as Gerald's car disappeared down a dirt road, leading to what appeared to be an old farmhouse surrounded by dense woods. Gerald would stay for exactly 3 hours, then return home. Marcus photographed the property from various angles, noting the isolation, the lack of nearby neighbors, and the no trespassing signs posted every 50 feet along the property line. Late at night, Marcus scoured missing children databases online. His dining room table became a command center covered with printouts, maps, and photographs. He cross-referenced Gerald's previous addresses with unsolved disappearance cases, looking for patterns. The discoveries were chilling. In Ohio, where Gerald claimed to have taught school, 3 children had vanished over a 5-year period. In Pennsylvania, 2 more disappearances coincided with Gerald's employment at a small private school. The children were all between 6 and 8 years old. All had disappeared from their own neighborhoods with no signs of struggle. Marcus created a timeline on his wall, connecting dates, locations, and Gerald's movements with red string like a detective from a crime show. The pattern was undeniable. "Marcus, what the hell is this?" Sarah's voice made him spin around. She stood in the doorway, staring at his conspiracy board with horror and disbelief. "Sarah, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you've turned our dining room into some kind of crazy stalker shrine." She pointed at Gerald's photographs. "This is our neighbor, Marcus. Our neighbor who brought us food when we were grieving. He has Tyler's shirt, Sarah. I saw it on his clothesline. Superman shirts are sold everywhere. You're seeing what you want to see because you can't accept that Tyler is." She couldn't finish the sentence. Don't say it." Marcus's voice turned dangerous. "Tyler is alive, and Gerald knows where he is." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Listen to yourself. You're obsessed. You're sick, Marcus. This isn't grief anymore. It's delusion. I'm close to finding him. I can feel it. You're close to losing yourself completely." Sarah grabbed her purse. "I'm staying at my sister's until you get help. Professional help." After she left, Marcus stood alone in his makeshift investigation room. Through the window, he could see Gerald's house, dark except for a single light in what appeared to be the basement. The basement. Marcus had never considered the basement before. He picked up his binoculars and focused on that lone light, watching shadows move behind the curtained window. Something was happening down there. Something Gerald didn't want the world to see. Marcus checked his camera battery and grabbed his car keys. Tonight, he would get closer to that rural property. Tonight, he would find answers, even if it killed him. Marcus crouched behind a cluster of pine trees, watching Gerald's silver Honda disappear down the dirt road toward the isolated farmhouse. This was his 3rd Friday following his neighbor, but tonight felt different. Tonight, he would get close enough to see what Gerald was hiding. The property was larger than it appeared from the main road. Marcus counted 4 buildings, the main farmhouse, a barn, a smaller outbuilding, and what looked like a storm cellar. No lights were visible from his position, but Gerald's car was parked beside the house. Marcus crept closer, using trees and overgrown bushes for cover. His heart hammered so loudly he was certain it would give him away. Every snapping twig under his feet sounded like gunfire in the autumn silence. Through a grimy window, he glimpsed movement inside the farmhouse. Gerald was talking to someone. A woman with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Marcus couldn't hear their conversation, but their body language suggested an argument. He pulled out his camera and began taking pictures, the flash disabled to avoid detection. Through the telephoto lens, he could see boxes stacked along the walls and what appeared to be children's clothing hanging on a makeshift clothesline. Children's clothing. Marcus's breathing became ragged as he zoomed in. A pink jacket that could belong to a little girl. Jeans that looked too small for an adult. And there, hanging at the end of the line, was a shirt he recognized from countless missing person flyers. A striped sweater that had belonged to Emma Rodriguez, who disappeared from Phoenix 2 years ago. Well, what do we have here?" The voice behind him was calm, almost amused. Marcus spun around to find Gerald standing 10 feet away, holding a flashlight and what looked like a baseball bat. "Gerald, I can explain." "Can you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trespassing on private property, taking pictures of people without permission." Gerald's neighborly facade had vanished completely. "That's stalking, Marcus. It's illegal. You have Tyler's shirt. You have other children's clothes in there. I saw them." Gerald laughed, but it was a cold sound that made Marcus's skin crawl. "You're seeing things that aren't there, neighbor, just like you've been doing for months." "I'm calling the police." Marcus fumbled for his phone. "Good idea. Let's call them together." Gerald pulled out his own phone. "I'll tell them about the desperate father who's been following me, taking pictures of my house, harassing me with wild accusations. They'll love hearing about your little stalker shrine at home." Marcus's stomach dropped. How did Gerald know about his investigation board? "That's right, Marcus. I know exactly what you've been doing. The thrift store visits, the following, the conspiracy theories. You're having a breakdown and everyone can see it. Even your wife left you." The truth hit Marcus like a physical blow. Gerald had been watching him just as closely as he'd been watching Gerald. "Now you're going to get in your car and drive home. You're going to take down that crazy wall of pictures. And you're going to stop this obsession before you destroy what's left of your pathetic life." Marcus stood frozen, torn between rage and fear. Gerald was right about one thing. Calling the police now would only make Marcus look like an unhinged stalker. "If you come near me or my property again," Gerald continued, his voice deadly quiet, "I will have you arrested. And trust me, with your recent behavior, no one will believe your wild stories about missing children." Defeated, Marcus stumbled back to his car, Gerald's mocking laughter echoing through the darkness behind him. By Monday morning, Gerald had filed a formal complaint with the police. Detective Morrison arrived at Marcus's house with a warning and barely concealed pity. "Stay away from Mr. Hendricks, Marcus. Get help. Professional help." As the detective left, Marcus realized he was completely alone in his fight to find Tyler. But he wasn't giving up. Not yet. Marcus sat in his empty house, staring at the bare dining room wall where his investigation board had hung. The police warning echoed in his mind, but so did the image of those children's clothes hanging in that farmhouse. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't imagining things. The doorbell rang at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. Through the peephole, Marcus saw a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore a simple navy blazer and carried a worn leather briefcase. "Mr. Thompson? I'm Linda Walsh. I'd like to talk to you about your neighbor, Gerald Hendricks." Marcus opened the door cautiously. "Are you a reporter? Because I'm not. I'm a retired detective. 28 years with the Philadelphia Police Department, specialized in missing persons cases." Linda's voice was steady, professional. "I've been tracking Gerald for 3 years. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. "Tracking him? May I come in? What I have to tell you will change everything you think you know about your situation." Minutes later, Linda sat at Marcus's kitchen table, spreading photographs and documents across the surface. Each photo showed Gerald at different locations, different time periods, but always near missing children cases. "Gerald Hendricks isn't his real name," Linda began. "His birth name is Gary Michael Holbrook. He's 54 years old, originally from Michigan. He's been using false identities for over a decade." Marcus studied the documents with trembling hands. "How do you know all this?" "Because my granddaughter, Amy, disappeared 4 years ago in Philadelphia. 8 years old, vanished from her own backyard during a family barbecue." Linda's voice remained steady, but Marcus saw the pain in her eyes. "Gary was working as a substitute teacher at Amy's school. He left town 2 days after she disappeared." Jesus Christ. Marcus sank into his chair. The shirt on his clothesline wasn't an accident. It was psychological warfare. Gary enjoys tormenting parents. He gets pleasure from watching families destroy themselves with grief and false hope. Linda pulled out a manila folder thick with papers. "He works with a network, Marcus. They don't just take children randomly. They study families first. They identify vulnerable targets, learn routines, find the perfect opportunity. A network. At least 12 people that I've identified, possibly more. They move children between safe houses, always staying one step ahead of law enforcement. Gary is a recruiter. He identifies targets and plans the abductions. Others handle transportation, housing, documentation. Marcus felt his world shifting again. Where do they take them? That's what I've been trying to figure out. The network operates under the guise of child protection. They believe they're saving children from inadequate families and placing them with better parents who can't adopt through legal channels. Tyler's still alive. The words came out as a whisper. Most likely, yes. But Marcus, you need to understand. These people are extremely dangerous and highly organized. Your surveillance attempts actually helped them. They've been watching you, learning your patterns, using your desperation against you. Linda leaned forward. The woman you saw at the farmhouse is Diana Cross. She's the coordinator. She decides where each child goes permanently. They're planning to move Tyler soon, possibly within days. How do you know all this? Because I've been working undercover for 3 years, tracking their communications, building a case. The Philadelphia police wouldn't pursue it, not enough evidence, they said. So I retired early and started investigating on my own. Marcus's mind raced. What do we do? Linda's expression turned grim. We have one chance, Marcus, but it means taking enormous risks, and it means trusting someone who failed her own granddaughter. She pulled out a final photograph of Tyler, taken recently, standing beside a small cabin. He looked older, thinner, but undeniably alive. This was taken 6 days ago at their holding facility in West Virginia. We have maybe 48 hours before they move him to his permanent placement. After that, he disappears forever. Marcus stared at his son's face, alive but changed. What do you need me to do? Help me bring down the entire network. All of them. Linda's eyes blazed with 3 years of buried fury. It's time to end this. Marcus paced his living room, adrenaline coursing through his veins as Linda laid out surveillance equipment on his coffee table. For the first time in 18 months, he felt hope burning bright in his chest. Sarah needs to know, he said, reaching for his phone. She needs to know Tyler's alive. Linda's hand stopped him. Marcus, no, not yet. What do you mean? She's his mother. She has a right. She also has a right to safety. The more people who know about this operation, the more danger everyone's in. Gary's network has eyes everywhere. But Marcus was already dialing. Sarah answered on the 3rd ring, her voice tired and distant. Marcus, if this is about your conspiracy theories again. Sarah, listen to me. Tyler's alive. I have proof. Recent photos. Silence. Then, stop. Just stop. A retired detective came to see me. Gerald isn't who we think he is. His real name is Gary Holbrook, and he's part of a child trafficking network. They have Tyler at a facility in West Virginia. Jesus Christ, Marcus. Sarah's voice cracked. You've completely lost your mind. I'm sending you the photos right now. Look at them. Marcus texted the image Linda had shown him. He heard Sarah's sharp intake of breath through the phone. That could be any child. The photo's too blurry, too far away. Look at his hands, Sarah. Look at the scar on his left thumb from when he fell off his bike. Look at the way he stands with his left shoulder slightly higher. That's our son. For a moment, Sarah said nothing. Marcus could hear her crying quietly. Even if this is real, Marcus, you can't go after these people. You're not a police officer. You're not a detective. You're a grieving father who's been stalking his neighbor and building conspiracy walls. I have help now. Linda knows what she's doing. Linda Walsh? I looked her up after she called me yesterday. Do you know what I found? She was forced to retire from the Philadelphia PD after becoming obsessed with her granddaughter's case. She was harassing suspects, conducting illegal surveillance, interfering with active investigations. Marcus felt his world tilting again. She never told me. She's using you, Marcus. She's feeding your delusions because she can't face the truth about her own loss. The truth? What truth? Sarah's voice became gentle, devastating. The truth that sometimes children disappear and never come home. The truth that sometimes there's no conspiracy, no network, no dramatic rescue mission. Sometimes terrible things just happen, and we have to find a way to live with it. Marcus sank onto his couch. I saw him, Sarah. In that photo, you saw what you needed to see, what your heart can't live without seeing. So what are you saying? That I should just give up? Forget Tyler ever existed. I'm saying you should get professional help. Real help. Not from some washed-up detective who's as broken as you are. Through his window, Marcus saw Gary's house, the basement light still glowing every night. He has Tyler's shirt, Sarah. I saw it with my own eyes. Superman shirts exist in every thrift store in America. You're connecting dots that aren't there. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was final. I can't do this anymore, Marcus. I can't watch you destroy yourself chasing ghosts. I filed for divorce yesterday. The words hit him like a physical blow. Sarah, please. I love Tyler too. I miss him every single day. But I won't let his disappearance destroy what's left of our lives. I won't enable your breakdown anymore. The line went dead. Marcus sat alone in his living room, surrounded by Linda's surveillance equipment and the wreckage of his marriage. Through the walls, he could hear Linda in the kitchen, making coffee and planning their next move. He picked up Tyler's photo again, studying every pixel. Was Sarah right? Was he seeing what he needed to see rather than what was actually there? Outside, Gary's basement light flickered once, then went dark. Marcus made his choice. Even if he was wrong, even if it destroyed him completely, he couldn't stop now. Tyler was out there somewhere, and Marcus would find him or die trying. The West Virginia facility was supposed to be their breakthrough. Marcus and Linda had driven through the night, armed with surveillance equipment and 3 years of accumulated evidence. The GPS coordinates from Linda's intercepted communications led them to a remote cabin nestled in the Appalachian foothills. But when they arrived at dawn, the cabin was empty. Not just empty, sanitized. Marcus kicked through the front door, his heart hammering with desperation. Inside, the rooms were stripped bare. Fresh paint covered the walls. New carpet had been installed. Even the smell was wrong, industrial cleaners and fresh lumber instead of the musty odor of an occupied building. They knew we were coming, Linda whispered, running her fingers along windowsills that showed no trace of fingerprints. Marcus tore through every room, checking closets, looking under floorboards, searching for any sign that children had been held here. Nothing. The basement revealed only empty concrete walls and a water heater that looked like it had been installed yesterday. This is impossible, Marcus shouted, his voice echoing off the bare walls. The photo was taken 6 days ago. Tyler was here. Linda found him in what should have been a bedroom, sitting on the floor with his head in his hands. For the first time since meeting her, Marcus saw uncertainty in her eyes. Marcus, I need to tell you something. Her voice was barely audible. The photo, I enhanced it digitally. I thought I saw Tyler's face, but the original image was much grainier. Marcus looked up, his world crumbling. What are you saying? I'm saying I might have been wrong. About the photo, about this location, about everything. The admission hit Marcus like a freight train. He began to laugh, a broken sound that scared even him. You might have been wrong? I destroyed my marriage, lost my wife, and chased ghosts across 3 states because you might have been wrong. I wanted it to be true as much as you did. Amy would be 12 now if she's still alive. I've spent 3 years convincing myself that every blonde girl in every surveillance video could be her. Marcus stood, rage and despair warring in his chest. So what now? We go home and pretend none of this happened? Accept that our children are just gone. Linda pulled out her phone, scrolling through dozens of photos and documents. Look at this. Really look. She showed him image after image, blurry surveillance photos, distant shots of men who might be Gary, children who could be anyone. This one's from Ohio. I was convinced this was Gary getting into a van with 2 children. But when I enhanced it, she zoomed in. The man's face was completely obscured by shadows. The children were too far away to identify. This one's from Pennsylvania. I thought I saw Amy in the background of a shopping center security video. Another enhancement revealed nothing but pixelated shapes that could have been anyone. Marcus felt something dying inside him. It's all been in our heads, hasn't it? I don't know anymore. Maybe Gary really is just a weird neighbor who shops at thrift stores. Maybe the timing of his move was coincidence. Maybe we're two broken people who found each other and created a shared delusion. They drove back to Marcus's house in silence. When they arrived, Gary's car was gone. Marcus walked over to the fence line and stared at his neighbor's empty backyard. The clothesline was bare, swaying gently in the afternoon breeze. Had there ever really been a Superman shirt hanging there? Or had Marcus's grief-stricken mind conjured the image it needed to see? Inside his house, Linda began packing her surveillance equipment. I'm sorry, Marcus. I thought I was helping, but I think I made everything worse. What are you going to do now? Go back to Philadelphia. Try to figure out how to live with not knowing. She paused at the door. What about you? Marcus looked around his empty house. No wife, no son, no hope. I honestly don't know. After Linda left, Marcus sat in Tyler's bedroom, holding the stuffed dinosaur. Outside, dusk was falling, and he could see lights coming on in houses throughout the neighborhood. Normal families having normal dinners, tucking normal children into normal beds. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe sometimes terrible things just happened, and you had to find a way to live with it. But as darkness settled over the house, Marcus couldn't shake one nagging thought. If Gary was innocent, why had he disappeared the same day they went to West Virginia? Marcus spent 2 days in a haze of self-doubt, questioning every memory, every observation, every moment of hope from the past 18 months. But Gary's sudden disappearance gnawed at him like an infected wound. On Friday morning, Linda called. Marcus, I found something. Can you meet me at the diner on Route 9? An hour later, Marcus slid into a booth across from Linda, who looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her laptop was open, displaying what appeared to be forum screenshots. I kept digging into Gary's background, she said without preamble. Even after our conversation about being wrong, something didn't sit right with me. Linda, we agreed. Just listen. I found online communities Gary's been part of. Not trafficking networks like I originally thought, but something almost worse. She turned the laptop toward him. They call themselves child guardians. Marcus read the forum posts with growing horror. The language was clinical, detached, but the underlying message was chilling. Members discussed rescuing children from inadequate families and placing them with worthy parents who couldn't adopt through conventional means. They genuinely believe they're doing good work, Linda explained. They target families they perceive as flawed single parents, parents with addiction histories, families going through divorce, even families they think are too permissive. Our family camping trip, Marcus whispered. Gary saw us being casual, letting Tyler sleep outside. He probably thought we were irresponsible parents. Linda scrolled to another post. Look at this, posted 3 weeks after Tyler disappeared. The message, written by someone with Gary's user handle, read, *subject T, successfully placed with Guardian Family Unit 7. Child adapting well to structured environment. Previous family unit showed concerning lack of supervision and boundaries. Placement considered permanent success. Marcus felt sick. Guardian Family Unit 7? I cross-referenced that with real estate records. There's a property registered to a couple named Frank and Martha Crenshaw in rural North Carolina. On paper, they're retired teachers, but public records show they've adopted for children in the past 6 years, all through private arrangements. Private arrangements, Marcus repeated. None of the children have birth certificates that match their supposed adoption papers. It's all falsified documentation. Linda pulled up more files. The Crenshaws believe they're providing loving homes to rescued children. They probably have no idea they're part of a kidnapping network. Marcus stared at a satellite image of the Crenshaw property, a neat farmhouse with a playground in the backyard, swing sets, and a sandbox. It looked like the perfect place to raise children. Tyler's there, isn't he? I think so. But Marcus, this changes everything about how we approach this. These aren't hardened criminals who'll fight to the death. They're deluded idealists who think they're heroes. Linda showed him more forum posts. The child guardians operated with elaborate psychological profiles of target families, extensive surveillance operations, and careful placement procedures. They kept children for months in transition homes before moving them to permanent guardian families. The transition home, Marcus said. That farmhouse where Gary takes his Friday trips. Diana Cross runs it. She's like a social worker in their twisted system. She evaluates children and determines the best guardian family placement based on personality matching and family needs. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. The clothes I saw hanging there, they belonged to other children who'd been processed through the system. Exactly. Diana keeps clothing as part of the evaluation process. She studies each child's preferences, sizes, favorite colors, all to ensure successful placement. The revelation was devastating and hopeful simultaneously. Tyler was alive, probably well cared for, but living with people who believed they were his rightful parents. The Crenshaws likely loved him, protected him, and had no idea he'd been stolen. How do we get him back without destroying innocent people who think they're his real family? Linda closed the laptop very carefully, because if we approach this wrong, the child guardians will move Tyler again, and this time we might never find him. She looked directly at Marcus. There's something else. Gary didn't disappear randomly. I intercepted a communication yesterday. Diana Cross is shutting down the transition home permanently. She suspects they've been compromised. When? Tomorrow night. After that, the entire network goes dark and relocates to different states. Marcus felt time crushing down on him. We have less than 24 hours. Linda nodded grimly. 24 hours to save Tyler and end this nightmare forever. Marcus and Linda spent the night planning their approach to Diana Cross's transition home. With less than 18 hours before the operation shut down permanently, they had one chance to intercept the children before they disappeared forever into the child guardian network. We can't involve local police, Linda insisted, spreading blueprints across Marcus's kitchen table. Half these rural departments are understaffed, and the other half might have sympathizers. The child guardians specifically target areas with limited law enforcement oversight. So what's the plan? Linda pointed to the farmhouse layout she'd obtained from county records. Diana's holding at least 6 children in the main house. Based on the forum communications I intercepted, she's preparing them for final placement tonight. Some go to guardian families, others get moved to new transition homes in different states. Marcus studied the property diagram. How do we know Tyler's still there? We don't, but this is our last shot at the entire network. Linda pulled out her phone, showing him the final intercepted message. Look at this. The communication was brief. Asterisk package T7 ready for Carolina placement. Unit 7 family prepared for permanent integration. All transition subjects clear by midnight. Facility sterilization begins 0100 hours. Asterisk. Package T7, Marcus whispered. Tyler, age 7. The Carolina placement confirms he's going to the Crenshaws. After tonight, he becomes their son legally and psychologically. Diana's people are experts at helping children forget their previous lives. Marcus felt urgency clawing at his chest. What do we need to do? Linda outlined their approach. She would create a distraction at the front of the property while Marcus approached from the rear. The goal wasn't confrontation. It was documentation and rescue. I've contacted a federal task force that's been tracking child trafficking networks. They're 3 hours away, but they need concrete evidence before they can move. Our job is to gather that evidence and keep the children safe until the feds arrive. At 9 p.m., they drove to the farmhouse in separate vehicles. Marcus parked a mile away and hiked through dense woods, carrying a camera, flashlight, and Linda's two-way radio. The property was more active than he'd ever seen it. Multiple vehicles were parked near the house, and people moved purposefully between buildings. Through binoculars, Marcus counted at least 8 adults coordinating what appeared to be a massive evacuation. "Linda, there's a lot more activity than we expected," he whispered into the radio. "Same here. I count 4 more cars than usual. They're accelerating the timeline." Marcus crept closer to the main house. Through a window, he saw Diana Cross directing younger women who were packing children's belongings. The children themselves sat quietly on couches, looking confused and subdued. Then he saw him. Tyler sat in the corner, wearing clothes Marcus didn't recognize. Khaki pants and a button-down shirt that made him look older, more formal. His hair was shorter, styled differently, but it was unmistakably his son. Marcus's hands shook as he raised the camera, taking photo after photo. Tyler looked healthy but distant, like he was emotionally somewhere else entirely. "Package confirmed," Marcus whispered into the radio. "He's here." "Marcus, we have a problem. I just saw Gary's car coming up the main road. He's not supposed to be here tonight." Through the window, Marcus watched Gary enter the house and speak urgently with Diana Cross. Whatever he was saying caused immediate panic. Diana began shouting orders, and the packing became frantic. "They know we're here," Linda's voice crackled through static. "They're evacuating now, not at midnight." Marcus watched in horror as adults began leading children toward waiting vehicles. Tyler was in the second group, walking hand in hand with a woman who spoke to him gently, reassuringly. "Linda, they're moving the kids now. I'm going in." "Marcus, no. Wait for the feds." But Marcus was already running toward the house. He couldn't watch Tyler disappear into another vehicle, drive away to another life, vanish forever into a system designed to erase his very existence. As he reached the front porch, Gary stepped outside and saw him. Well, the grieving father finally shows up to the party. Gary wasn't surprised. He was smiling. "You've been expecting me?" Marcus realized. "Of course. Did you really think a washed-up detective and a desperate dad could outsmart a network that's been operating for 12 years? Gary's smile turned cold. "We've been watching you both since day one." Behind Gary, Marcus could see Tyler being led toward a van, still holding the woman's hand, still looking like he didn't quite understand what was happening. "Tyler!" Marcus screamed. His son turned at the sound of his voice, and for just a moment, recognition flickered in Tyler's eyes. Then everything went dark as something struck Marcus from behind. Marcus awoke to the smell of gasoline and the sound of muffled crying. His head throbbed where he'd been struck, and his hands were zip-tied behind his back. He was in the farmhouse basement, surrounded by 6 children sitting on mattresses against the walls. Tyler was among them. "Dad." Tyler's voice was small, uncertain. "Are you really my dad?" The question broke Marcus's heart. 18 months of psychological conditioning had done their work. Tyler remembered him, but the memories had been twisted, reframed as confusion rather than love. "Yes, buddy. I'm your dad, and I've been looking for you every single day." Diana Cross descended the basement stairs, her gray hair now disheveled, her calm demeanor replaced by frantic energy. "This is unfortunate, Mr. Thompson. We hoped you'd eventually accept Tyler's new life and move on." "New life? You kidnapped my 7-year-old son." "We rescued him from parents who allowed unsupervised camping trips and showed dangerous negligence." Diana's voice carried the conviction of someone who genuinely believed her own lies. "Tyler has thrived in structured environments. The Crenshaws will provide him with discipline, education, and moral guidance you clearly couldn't." Marcus struggled against his restraints. He was safe with us. He was loved. Love without boundaries is chaos. We provide children with what they truly need: security, purpose, and parents who've proven their worthiness through sacrifice. Upstairs, Marcus could hear vehicles starting, doors slamming, voices calling out orders. The evacuation was continuing despite his capture. "Where's Linda?" Diana smiled coldly. "Ms. Walsh is indisposed. Permanently." The words hit Marcus like ice water. Linda was dead, and he was trapped in a basement with 6 terrified children, while their captors prepared to scatter them across the country. Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced Gary's arrival. He carried a gas can and what looked like a timer device. "Diana, we need to finish this. The feds are 20 minutes out." "Gary, there are children here." "Exactly. No witnesses, no evidence." The house burns, and everyone assumes it was a tragic accident involving a deranged father who couldn't accept his son's death. Marcus felt cold horror wash over him. "You're going to kill children to cover your tracks?" "I'm going to prevent the destruction of a network that saved hundreds of children from inadequate families." Gary's voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. 6 children here versus hundreds will continue to save in the future. The mathematics are simple. Diana backed away from Gary. "This isn't what we agreed. The children were supposed to be relocated. Not. Plans change." Gary pulled out a pistol. "You're too much of a liability now anyway, Diana. Too soft." The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed basement. Diana crumpled to the floor, and the children began screaming. "Shut up!" Gary roared at the children, waving the gun. "All of you, shut up right now." Marcus realized with crystal clarity that Gary had never been a true believer in the child guardian ideology. He was something far worse, a predator who'd used their misguided mission as cover for his own twisted purposes. "Tyler, listen to me," Marcus said quietly, trying to cut through his son's terror. "Remember the camping trip? Remember roasting marshmallows? Remember your stuffed dinosaur, Rex?" Tyler's eyes widened slightly. "Rex? I had dreams about Rex." "Those weren't dreams, buddy. Those were memories. Real memories." Gary poured gasoline around the basement perimeter, the fumes making everyone cough. "Very touching. Too bad no one will be alive to remember it." But as Gary set the timer on his incendiary device, sirens wailed in the distance. The federal task force had arrived ahead of schedule. Gary cursed and ran upstairs, shouting orders Marcus couldn't make out. Through the basement windows, red and blue lights strobed across the walls. "Dad, I'm scared," Tyler whispered. "I know, buddy, but the police are here now. We're going to be okay." Marcus worked desperately at his zip ties, trying to free himself before Gary returned. The gasoline fumes were getting stronger, and the timer on Gary's device showed 3 minutes and counting. Upstairs, he could hear gunfire and shouting. The raid was in full swing. 2 minutes. The zip ties finally gave way, and Marcus scrambled to gather the children. "Everyone stay close to me. We're getting out of here." 1 minute. As they reached the basement stairs, Gary appeared at the top, bloody and wild-eyed. "Nobody leaves." Behind him, Marcus could see federal agents moving through the house. "It's over, Gary. Let the children go." Gary raised his gun toward Tyler, his finger tightening on the trigger. "If I can't have him, nobody can." Time slowed as Gary's finger tightened on the trigger. Marcus threw himself forward, shielding Tyler with his body, when a gunshot echoed through the basement. But it wasn't Gary's gun that fired. Gary crumpled to the floor, clutching his shoulder. Behind him stood Officer James Parker, weapon drawn, badge gleaming on his tactical vest. "Federal agents. Everyone down." Marcus gathered Tyler and the other children against the far wall as more agents flooded the basement. The timer on Gary's incendiary device showed 30 seconds. "There's a bomb," Marcus shouted. 30 seconds. Officer Parker calmly walked to the device and entered a code. The timer stopped at 12 seconds. "How did you?" Marcus began. Parker smiled, but it wasn't the expression of a rescuing hero. It was cold, calculating. "Because I set it up." The horrible truth crashed over Marcus like ice water. Parker wasn't there to rescue them. He was there to ensure the operation's success. "You're one of them. I'm the reason they've operated successfully for 12 years. Local police reports get buried. Federal investigations get misdirected. Witnesses sometimes have accidents." Parker's voice was matter-of-fact. The Child Guardian Network serves a valuable purpose, even if some of its members occasionally get carried away. Parker nudged Gary with his boot. Gary here forgot the cardinal rule: never let it become personal. The moment he started playing psychological games with you, Marcus, he became a liability. "You're going to kill us all anyway," Marcus said, pulling Tyler closer. "Actually, no. That was Gary's plan, and it was sloppy. Too many bodies, too much attention. I prefer elegant solutions." Parker pulled out his radio. "Command, this is Parker. I've secured the basement. The perpetrator, Gary Holbrook, killed Diana Cross and was attempting to murder the hostages when I was forced to shoot him. I need paramedics for a wounded suspect and transport for 6 recovered missing children." Marcus stared in disbelief. "You're going to be the hero. I'm going to be the federal agent who broke up a child trafficking ring and rescued 6 children, including Tyler Thompson. The media will love it. My career will flourish. And the network will reorganize under new management, my management. The other children will be placed in the system properly. Legitimate adoptions, legal guardianships. No more amateur psychologists like Diana or loose cannons like Gary. Just clean, efficient child placement services for families who can afford premium adoption fees." Parker was describing a new horror. The Child Guardian Network turned into a legitimate-appearing business with law enforcement protection. "Tyler stays with me," Marcus said firmly. "Of course, that's the beauty of this solution. You get your son back. I get credit for the rescue. The network gets professional management. Everyone wins. Except the children who get sold to the highest bidder." Parker shrugged. "There's always been a market for private adoptions. I'm just bringing professional standards to the industry." Gary groaned from where he lay bleeding. "James, we had a deal. We had a partnership. You violated the terms by making it personal with the Thompson family." Parker looked down at Gary with disgust. "Hanging that shirt on your clothesline? Taunting Marcus at the property? Pure amateur theatrics." Parker keyed his radio again. "Command, suspect is regaining consciousness and appears combative. I may need to use additional force." Marcus realized with horror that Parker was going to kill Gary to silence him permanently. "Wait," Marcus shouted. "Gary has information about other children, other locations. If you kill him, you'll never find them all." Parker paused, considering. Through the basement windows, Marcus could see more federal vehicles arriving. Real agents were flooding the property. "You're right," Parker said finally. "Gary might still be useful." But as Parker leaned down to check Gary's wounds, the injured man grabbed Parker's backup weapon and fired twice. Parker collapsed, blood spreading across his tactical vest. Gary struggled to his feet, pointing the gun at Marcus and Tyler. Nobody destroys what I built." Outside, voices were shouting commands. The real federal agents were closing in. Gary looked at the basement windows, calculating his chances of escape. Then he looked at Tyler, and Marcus saw murder in his eyes. "If I can't complete the mission," Gary whispered, "then there won't be any witnesses to testify about it." The final confrontation was about to begin. Gary raised the gun toward Tyler, his hand shaking from blood loss and rage. 12 years of perfect operations, ruined by one obsessive father. Marcus positioned himself between Gary and Tyler, spreading his arms to shield his son. "It's over, Gary. The feds are upstairs. You can't escape." "I don't need to escape. I just need to finish what I started." The basement door burst open. Federal agents poured down the stairs, weapons drawn, shouting commands that echoed off the concrete walls. "Drop your weapon. Hands visible." Gary spun toward the agents, raising his gun. The gunfire was instantaneous and final. Gary crumpled to the floor beside Parker's body, both men dead in a basement that had become a tomb for their corrupted ambitions. Agent Sarah Martinez, the task force leader, immediately secured the scene while paramedics rushed to check the children. Marcus held Tyler close, feeling his son's small body trembling against his chest. "It's over, buddy. It's really over." But Tyler pulled away, looking at Marcus with eyes that held too much confusion and pain for a 9-year-old. I don't remember everything. They told me you didn't want me anymore." The words cut deeper than any physical wound. 18 months of psychological manipulation had done terrible damage to Tyler's sense of identity and belonging. "That was never true, Tyler. Never. I looked for you every single day." Agent Martinez approached them carefully. "Mr. Thompson, we need to get these children medical attention and psychological evaluation. Tyler's going to need specialized therapy to process what he's been through." As they were led upstairs, Marcus saw the full scope of the federal operation. The entire child guardian network was being dismantled. Agents were loading computers, files, and communication equipment into evidence trucks. The other children were being gently guided toward waiting ambulances and social workers. Outside, Marcus learned the devastating cost of their victory. Linda Walsh's body had been found in the woods behind the property. She'd been shot trying to call for backup when Gary discovered their surveillance operation. Her sacrifice had bought Marcus the time he needed to reach Tyler, but she would never see her own granddaughter again. "She saved my son," Marcus told Agent Martinez. "Linda died saving Tyler. Her intelligence work is what made this raid possible. Without her 3 years of investigation, we never would have found this network." Over the following weeks, the full scope of the child guardian operation became clear. 43 children had been processed through their system over 12 years. Some, like Tyler, were recovered from guardian families who'd believed they were legitimate adoptions. Others had been relocated so many times that their trails had gone cold. Officer James Parker's corruption had protected the network by sabotaging investigations, destroying evidence, and intimidating witnesses. His personnel file revealed a pattern of cases that had mysteriously stalled or been closed without resolution. Marcus spent his days in family therapy sessions with Tyler, slowly rebuilding their relationship. Tyler's memories returned in fragments: camping trips, bedtime stories, family dinners, but they were mixed with false memories implanted by his captors. "They told me you were dangerous," Tyler said during one session, "that you couldn't take care of me properly." "What do you believe now?" the therapist asked gently. Tyler looked at Marcus with 9-year-old eyes that had seen too much. I think they were the dangerous ones, but I still get scared sometimes. I still have dreams where I can't remember who's real." The therapy sessions were heartbreaking and hopeful in equal measure. Tyler was healing, but the scars would take years to fade completely. Sarah returned 2 months after Tyler's rescue. Her face streaked with tears as she saw her son for the first time in 18 months. "I'm sorry," she whispered to Marcus. "I should have believed you. I should have helped you look. You were protecting yourself the only way you knew how," Marcus replied. "We all survived this differently." But even as their family began to reunite, Marcus knew the victory was incomplete. Tyler was home, but dozens of other children remained missing. The child guardian network was destroyed, but other networks surely existed. The nightmare was over for the Thompson family, but somewhere, other parents were just beginning their desperate searches for vanished children. 6 months after Tyler's rescue, the Thompson family stood in the backyard of their new home in Vermont, 300 miles from the memories that had nearly destroyed them. The moving truck had left that morning, taking the last remnants of their old life away forever. Tyler, now 10 years old, was taller and quieter than Marcus remembered, but the spark in his eyes was slowly returning. He stood beside a small garden plot, holding a packet of sunflower seeds. "Can we plant these, Dad? Like we used to?" The question was simple, but it represented months of painstaking therapy and gradual trust building. Tyler was finally ready to create new memories instead of just recovering old ones. "Of course, buddy. Let's make this the best garden Vermont has ever seen." Sarah watched from the kitchen window, her smile genuine for the first time in 2 years. The divorce papers had been quietly withdrawn 3 months ago. Their marriage was fragile, rebuilt on shared trauma and tentative hope, but they were trying. "He asked about camping last night," Sarah said as Marcus came inside. Dirt under his fingernails and peace in his heart for the first time since Tyler's disappearance. "What did you tell him?" "That maybe next summer when he's ready." Small steps. Marcus nodded. Everything in their lives now happened in small steps. Tyler still had nightmares. He still occasionally called Marcus Mr. Thompson when he was confused or scared. But progress was measurable even if it was slow. The therapy had been brutal but necessary. Tyler had to unlearn 18 months of conditioning that told him his real family didn't want him. Marcus and Sarah had to learn how to parent a child who'd been taught not to trust parental love. But there were victories. Last month, Tyler had laughed at one of Marcus's terrible dad jokes, the first spontaneous laughter Sarah had heard from him since his rescue. 2 weeks ago, Tyler had crawled into bed with them during a thunderstorm, seeking comfort instead of suffering in silence. Yesterday, Tyler had called Marcus Dad, without prompting for the first time since coming home. Marcus had dedicated himself to a new mission since Tyler's return. Working with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, he helped other families navigate the nightmare of child abduction cases. His experience with the Child Guardian Network had taught him to recognize patterns other investigators missed. Linda Walsh's research had become the foundation for a federal task force specifically targeting ideologically motivated child trafficking networks. Her sacrifice had meaning beyond Tyler's rescue. It was preventing other families from enduring what the Thompsons had survived. "There's something I want to show you," Tyler said after dinner, leading Marcus to his new bedroom. On Tyler's desk sat a small photo album. The first page contained pictures from before his disappearance, family camping trips, birthday parties, ordinary moments that had become precious beyond measure. The rest of the pages were empty. "I want to fill it with new pictures," Tyler explained. "Good pictures. Pictures of us being a family again." Marcus felt tears threatening. That sounds like the best project ever. That evening, as Tyler slept peacefully in his bed for the 6th consecutive night without nightmares, Marcus sat on the front porch with Sarah, watching stars emerge over their new neighborhood. "Do you think he'll be okay?" Sarah asked. "He's strong. Stronger than we knew. He survived 18 months of people trying to erase who he was, but he never forgot completely. That tells me everything about his character." Sarah leaned against Marcus's shoulder. "What about us? Will we be okay?" Marcus considered the question carefully. They'd been through hell, made terrible mistakes, hurt each other deeply, but they'd also fought their way back to each other through the worst crisis any family could face. "I think we're going to be better than okay. Different than before, but better." Inside the house, Tyler's voice called out softly, "Dad, could you come here for a minute?" Marcus found Tyler sitting up in bed, holding his old stuffed dinosaur Rex, who'd been waiting in Tyler's room throughout his entire disappearance. "I remembered something today," Tyler said. "I remembered the last thing I said to you before I was taken." Marcus's heart stopped. "What did you remember?" Tyler smiled, the first completely unguarded smile Marcus had seen since the rescue. "I said, 'I love you, Dad,' and I still do." As Marcus tucked Tyler back into bed, he realized that some journeys through darkness lead to light brighter than anything that came before. Their family was healing. Tyler was home. And tomorrow, they would plant sunflowers together and watch them grow toward the sun.